Hello everybody, this is Jacob Hiller, coming at you from India right now. We are in Kolkata, India. We are here, I'm working with some athletes at the Sports Authority of India, showing them some new techniques, in particular how to use bands and chains, as well as how to train for power output rather than just amount of weight lifted, which is something I'm going to get into just a little bit right here. But I want to tell you a little bit about what our push is going to be this year. At the very end of last year, we introduced the concept of an objective approach at your nutrition. And I introduced to you a company that's called Bioletics. Now, what's so important about Bioletics is it's going to allow you to approach your nutrition, your supplementation at a very objective viewpoint. For example, using the Bioletics test, and even though some of you might think they're a little pricey, in the end, if you're taking supplements you don't need, it's going to be much more pricey to pay for those supplements. Supplements can get very expensive, as you probably know, and many of you might be taking supplements you don't need. In my case, I found out I was taking some supplements I didn't need, as well as some that I did need. I also found out that there were some that I did need to take. So, for example, in my personal test, I found out that I was a little low in essential fatty acids, low in amino acids, in fact, low in a lot of things. In fact, now that I'm looking back on it, I'm trying to think of which ones I wasn't low in, but immediately when I started supplementing my fatty acids, joint pain, or I didn't have any serious joint pain, but I maybe had the type of joint pain that makes you think, in the future you might want to be careful, or I might want to start reducing and taking a little more recovery periods. But anyways, as soon as I started taking my essential fatty acids, it probably reduced inflammation, and I didn't have any signs of pain at all, and which is really nice. And so now I'm working on getting all my numbers up, my amino acids, my vitamin D, my essential fatty acids, all these things, so that I can be ready to train, get the best results possible, and most importantly, avoid injury. So I consider it one of the best moves you could make is to do your testing with a company like Bioletics, or you can do it at your doctor, or you can do it anywhere. Do your blood work, find out what your levels are, and then work on either changing your diet or properly supplementing. Some of you might find that you're in great shape. You're eating a well-rounded diet, you're getting proper rest and recovery, and all this stuff. Because nutrition is more complicated than some people will let out. They'll say, all you need to do is take a certain supplement, but we all react differently. We all have different pH balances. Our body is absorbing and doing things differently based on our diet and based on our activities. So this is really a way to objectively approach your nutrition and your recovery and your health based on those results. Anyways, long tangent, Bioletics is important, and really, if you're a serious athlete and or professional athlete, it's the way in order to ensure that you're doing the very most for your progress. Now, secondly, I want to talk to you about training for power output rather than just training for weight lifted. Because as we know, just because you can lift a heavy weight doesn't mean you're able to be explosive in short periods of time. And as you also may know, most sport-specific movements happen in a very short period of time. For instance, jumping, sprinting, changing some direction. These happen in less than half of a second, all these movements. So even if you're strong. Now let me explain a little bit about how this would work. So you have a curve here, and at the low end of the curve, this is how fast you can move. So let's say you can perform a movement in a quarter of a second, but in that quarter of a second, you're only able to create a certain amount of power. And basically, if you're able to have more time to develop that power, you may be very strong, but it really doesn't matter. Because even if your limit strength, your ability to move a heavy weight, or the maximum amount of muscle tension you can place on your muscle, even if that's very high, if you can't use that power and that strength in a very short period of time, it's of very little, if not no use to you, unless you're a strong man or a power lifter. Even Olympic lifters rely on being able to recruit that strength very quickly. So anyways, what we've seen in history and what we even see now is people, they train based on how heavy the weight is that they can move. And the better trainers and the better athletes are also trying to maximize the speed at which they move that weight. Because the higher the velocity that you move the weight, and the more actual weight that you move. So the combination of the velocity and the amount of force behind that velocity is going to equal more or less your power. So that's an easy way to understand what power is how fast something is moving and how much force is behind it. So what you need to be optimizing, so to speak, is your ability to create high amounts of power at high velocities. Because really, we want to optimize the velocity side of this strength curve. Because even if our power is very high, if the speed of the movement is very low, you won't get off the ground. So even if you're able to move heavy weights, moving a heavy weight, for example, if you're able to, let's say, squat. Let's say you're able to squat 525 pounds. That's a lot of weight, and that means you have a great deal of strength. But if you can only move that weight very slowly, even though your power output might be more than someone who's moving very fast with a very small amount of weight, that person is still not going to get off the ground, even though they're moving 525 pounds. So we need to train power output on the velocity side of the movement. So we need to be able to move at very high speeds and create as much power as possible in order to overcome our own body weight. So that is really the key to the way you need to be training. So this is a little introduction. I don't want to go overboard with this right now, but what I'd like you to do is list your questions below. You know, is this completely crazy sounding? Does it make any sense to you? And then I will start explaining these issues, because we're going to get into how you can start training objectively your power output. That means knowing exactly what type of velocities you have, knowing exactly, you know, an actual number on what your power output is, and optimize your training to be able to create power output at high velocities in order to overcome your body weight and send your body in an upward direction at a very high velocity, which is the exact same thing as jumping very high. My dinner's ready, so I'm going to get going, and I will talk to you guys.